Agni. Mandalam 1, Suktam 36A. Rishi,
Kanva Ghaura,
Devata, Agni, Chandas,
Brihati, Shato Brihati.
Mandalam 1, Suktam 36, Rik 1.
प्रभायत्वम् पुरोणाम् दिशाम् देवयतीनाम् अग्निम् सूक्तेभिर्वचोभिरीमहेयम् श्रीमिदन्यजीवते.
We come through, all of you, many people, seeking divinity by hymns of praise, by speech towards him, powerful Agni, whom they indeed implore upon others. A transformative thought that bridges the chasm between mortals and immortals. This is an assertion with complete conviction, yet again, of the truth that Agni, with its profusion of expressions, is the initiator and sustainer of all activities in existence. The definition of divinity mentioned in the introduction to this work that reads as the spontaneous expression at an instant of the forces of nature as a process, an object, or a thought subject to systemic conditions is perhaps applicable to mortals too, in the scenario where every activity is preordained, regardless of the deliberations about the need and consequences of activities that swell in mortal minds. Since, in a preordained world, these deliberative thoughts too would be ordained activities, the entire exercise can indeed be deemed spontaneous and hence qualify as being divine. This understanding that mortals too are in principle divine, despite being subject to mortality, as divine as any of the divinities that they extol, is perhaps the state of transcendence that the Vedas repeatedly prompt mortals to attain and the mortals strive for by various means. This probably is the basis of the notion that everything in existence is a living entity and everything that lives is the unmanifest supreme. This transformative thought, when sustained, is truly the attainment of complete consciousness, the realization that the universe is just not one family, but one.
Mandalam 1, Suktam 36, Rik 2.
जगादो अग्निम् दधिरेदो वृथम् भविष्मम् तो विधेमते तत्त्वम् नो अद्य सुमना जिहाविता भवावाजेषु सन्ध्या.
People granted Agni increasing strength. Offerers of oblations will want to offer to you. You, benevolent mind, do be here now. He, bountiful, protector for us in abundance. duty-bound divinities. It is mortals who have not realized the divinity in themselves and others who make a distinction between mortals and immortals, which is appropriate too, because it is only after the dawn of this realization do they come to understand the scheme of existence. Until such time, the immortals are certainly incomparably more capable and unsurpassably wiser than the mortals living in the delusion of being inferior on one, more, or all counts. This delusion spawns the tendency of thinking well of themselves only upon being praised by others, a predisposition that they project upon their personified divinities as well, to whom, not being mortals, it is of no relevance. Their mandate is to dispense truth to all mortals without favor, which they do scrupulously. The composer is perhaps attempting to convey the fact that living by truth protects its adherents, while those doing otherwise invariably perish. The divinity that is benevolent and bountiful can be wrathful and severe if the situation so demands. For it, the divinity, they are just jobs to be done unreservedly. A mortal that has realized divinity in itself will be able to perceive the two-way exchange between itself and Agni that the verse mentions about, for it will then be seen to be an exchange between equals.
Mandalam 1, Suktam 36, Rik 3.
तत्त्वादूतं व्रीणीमहे होदारं विश्ववेदम् महस्ते सतो विचरन्त्यत्ययो दिविस्क्रीसन्ति भागवाः.
Messenger, we choose you, priest calling divinities, omniscient, flames of your great virtuosity spread everywhere. Your radiances reach upon heaven. Mortal design and its time-dictated expression. Creation has designed mortals to initially perceive the environment from a particular standpoint only, that of the self. Whether or not the design is flawed is not for us to judge. The fact that lineages of certain mortals have been around without much alterations to their form and behavior and survived millions of years is surely a testimony to their robustness. Examples of such species of mortals are crocodile and cockroach. Perception of the environment from the standpoint of the self is what gives rise to expressions such as "we choose you" in this verse, until such time that we understand that in existence it is time that chooses everything. Processes, objects, and thoughts are all functions of time and are given expression upon its direction by the divinities, Agni being the foremost among them. Doing what needs to be done as dictated by time is his virtuosity, as well as of the other divinities that operate universally. It is surely to the credit of creation that mortal design also includes a mind that has been granted the ability to comprehend this existential architecture and also the competence to transcend it, time permitting.
Mandalam 1, Suktam 36, Rik 4.
विश्वासस्तावरो मित्रो अर्यमासम् दूतम् प्रत्नविन्दते विश्वांसो अग्ने जयते त्वया धनम् यस्ते ददा समर्त्याः.
Divinities Varuna, Mitra, Aryama together kindle you. Ancient messenger, he, mortal, who had offered to you Agni, with you conquers all riches. In Agni is the confluence of all natural forces. Any work-related formula in contemporary science will have an energy factor in it, directly or indirectly. It is a similar situation in Vedic thought too, with an aspect of Agni being present in every other divinity, whether they be fundamental principles like the Panchabhutas, processes that are expressible as functions of multiple divinities like the sun, abstractions like thoughts and emotions, or even potential divinities like mortals. Certain processes and situations are exothermic in nature, releasing energy that can be compared to the notion of kindling Agni attributed to the divinities Varuna, Mitra and Aryama. Every form of messaging, from intracellular to extraterrestrial, involves use of energy or Agni. For this reason, Agni becomes synonymous with the notion of a messenger. The verse mentions only one side of the story when saying that the mortal who has adhered to the law of universal conduct gets Agni's aid in acquiring riches. It also stands to reason that for those who do not comply, Agni obstructs such acquisition.
Mandalam 1, Suktam
36.
Rik 5.
मन्द्रो होता गृहवाजिरत्ने दूतो विशामासि वे विश्वासङ्गादायम् व्रता ध्रुवाजानि देवा अगन्वदा.
Deep-sounding priest, master of house, Agni, you are messenger of people. In you are united all unchangeable courses of conduct, those divinities made. Agni pervaded existence. The truthful sentiment about Agni expressed in the previous verse is repeated here in different words. The courses of conduct mentioned here are essentially the laws of nature that are unchangeable across time, or even if some of them do occasionally, they happen by definite, logical, and prognosticable processes over cosmic time ranges. As always, Agni is the initiator and driver of these processes too. The point of confluence of all natural forces representing varied activities in existence is Agni. He is there in the heat of the sun, generated by the fusion reaction continuously happening at its core. He is there in the formation and splitting of molecules, forming and splitting bonds. He is there in the saliva, stomach, and guts of mortals to process ingested food and keep the body system working. He is there in the winds that move clouds, that whip up waves in oceans, brew cyclones, tornadoes, and blizzards. He makes water flow. He is there in birth and in death. This is exactly what contemporary science also says, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change its manner of expression depending on the needs of the situational parameters.
Mandalam 1, Suktam
36.
Rig 6.
वेदिलग्ने सुभगे यवित्यभिस्तमाहूयते हविः सत्पर्णो अद्य सुमना उत परम् यक्षि देवान् सुवीर्या.
For you, indeed, Agni, youngest, into good fortune all offering is verily given, that you, benevolent mind, for us now and after, do sacrifice to divinities, to those having great power. Divinities maintain equilibrium in existence. Most epithets bestowed upon immortals by mortals apply to the entire pantheon of Vedic divinities. The epithet youngest, for instance, refers to the immediacy of invariant action of natural forces. Immediacy or quick response in the mortal domain is associated with youthfulness and invariance with being ever youthful in this context. When the temperature of a material reaches or rises above its auto-ignition point, it spontaneously bursts into flames, and always. Agni's youthfulness being widely visible, he becomes the youngest in mortal perception. Other ideas expressed in the verse have already been discussed in earlier verses and suktams on Agni. Existence, by design, always strives for equilibrium. This surely is good fortune for all concerned, considering the despair that large sections of mortals would face if one or the other ideology were to have an unchallenged run. Agni, as well as all other divinities, aid existence in preventing this from happening, and in quick time.
Mandalam 1, Suktam
36.
Rig 7.
गन्धे वित्थानमस्ति नमुपस्वराजमासते होत्राभिरग्निम् मनोरस्तमिन्धते धर्माम् स्वादिस्पृधाः.
Indeed, now, thus those prostrated approach near him, the self-ruler. People having navigated failings kindle Agni by invocations together. Raging Agni, early earth, and Agni's later amenable avatar. Under the assumption that the word people in this verse does not represent humans alone, but does any living form, the verse could represent conditions across geological eras, from early Earth that had volcanic activity for 1 billion years, caused by the release of heat from the planet's core, as well as the impact of meteorites, to the present, where the atmosphere is relatively more stable. Every era must have had a section of life forms that must have found conditions to be inhibitory and developed mechanisms for the deliberated and controlled use of energy for survival and evolution. If kindling Agni, the self-ruler, can be equated with its controlled use, then the prostrated people could be this mentioned section of life forms from each era. They used the skill so learnt to navigate themselves through tough conditions, which was their truth. Their living this truth collectively represented by forces of nature were their invocations. Of course, this supposed conclusion will apply to any geological era, each with a collective of those prostrated who navigate their failings and invoke Agni for a better future. Agni, however, is always himself, his articulations in correspondence with prevailing conditions that may be beneficial to some mortals, not as much to some others.
Mandalam 1, Suktam
36.
Rik 8.
धनन्दो वृत्रमातरन् रोदसी अपपुरुक्षयायचक्रिरे भुवत्कन्धे वृषाद्युम्याहुनः क्रन्ददस्त्वोकविष्टिषु.
Destroying darkness, crossed heaven and earth, took waters, wideness for dominion. Inspired bull, nourished by offerings, became in Kanva, the neighing steed desiring challenges. A broad description of the process of evolution in Vedic parlance. Just as sunlight and the sun are used synonymously in Vedic texts, perhaps the unicellular life forms that do photosynthesis and the oxygen they produce are considered synonymous too. If this surmise is correct, oxygen, representing the life forms that produce it, make the wideness of the lower and upper atmosphere, earth and heaven, their dominion, a prerequisite for the evolution of life as we know it. Water is a loose term in Vedic parlance that represents both liquids, gases, as well as the truth of natural forces, an abstraction that pervade the two regions of the atmosphere. If intelligence can be defined as the ability to use logic to successfully negotiate life, then all life forms are indeed endowed with intelligence. The Sanskritam word kanva denotes one who is intelligent. The higher a life form stands on the ladder of evolution, the greater should be its intelligence as the challenges that it faces get more diverse, with the instinct of survival and the inherent trait of all mortals of being curious, goading them to be desirous of challenges. Creation also ensures that the ecosystem in which a life form flourishes provides it with all the nourishment that it needs, which can be deemed to be offerings of other life forms. This could be the scenario described by the verse, a broad description of the advent of the process of evolution in Vedic parlance. Darkness here could be the haze that would permeate the atmosphere when the proportion of volcanic gases and dust is high. Clarity of the atmosphere and greater concentrations of oxygen provides the impetus to evolutionary activities.
Mandalam 1, Suktam
36.
Rik 9.
वंशीनस्वमहाकाशिशोचस्वदेववीतमः विधो ममग्ने अरुणम् वीयेद्यसृजप्रशस्तदर्शनम्.
Together, do sit down, do illuminate, most destiny-knowing, mighty Agni, partaker of offerings, do widely release bright conspicuous smoke, one who is eulogized. Agni, the destiny knower by default. The term destiny knowing, describing Agni, gives rise to the question of how something that acts in spontaneity can deliberate on the script of existence to guide activities along a preordained path. That should be the job of time, or its representative timeline, stamped into the minds of every mortal upon being conceived. A timeline that is in consonance with those of all other mortals that are destined to interact with the one in focus. Such an organization will ensure that the entire universe works harmoniously, as it seems to have been doing from time immemorial. Thoughts are then guided along certain set paths aided by Agni, as well as all the other divinities, who contribute their might in appropriate measures to make thoughts to traverse such paths and also power physical actions that may result as a consequence. This would be a system analyst's viewpoint of how existence may have been designed to work, on the assumption that it is entirely script-driven. As Agni can be seen and its expressions felt, unlike time, the mantle of being a destiny knower is offered to Agni to wear, that he dance with aplomb. He surely knows what he needs to do now and what not, and that certainly makes him the destiny knower of now at least. The widely released conspicuous smoke part is to convey that Agni surely leaves behind his signature, indicating his having been at work wherever he does, which is everywhere, to enable the inquisitive to follow his unending exploits.
Mandalam 1, Suktam 36, Rik 10.
यन्त्वा देवा सोमनावे तदुलिगजष्टम् भव्यवाहन जगन्कन्भो मेध्यादिजर्धनस्पदम् यमृगायमो वस्तुतः.
You, whom gods have presented here for mortal, extolled in highest degree, carrier of offerings, who is carrier of wealth, intelligent and wise guest, who is the bull, who is invoked. Standard epithets of divinities. Every divinity is invoked or eulogized with very similar epithets that describe a particular aspect of their expression that are broadly applicable to most, or as a general praise. This is so because the design of the physical universe and existence are made up of a few fundamental elements in both the material realm and that of abstractions that the divinities use in varying measures and combinations to express themselves. This is akin to the various formulae defining natural processes using the same set of variables to explain the outcome upon their application. The same can be said of the subject of mathematics too. Also, when a compilation of verses or Suktam, that literally translates as good verbalization, is dedicated to a particular divinity, it is incumbent upon the composer to extol that divinity in the highest degree that he or she can, to be true to the work of composition, and at the same time ensure that it lives up to the standard of being called good verbalization. Every epithet of Agni used in this verse has been used for him as well as other divinities many times across suktams and verses covered thus far, and will continue to be in those to come. If you found this video informative and relevant, please like and share it. If you would like to see more such videos in this ongoing series, please do subscribe to the channel. Thank you for viewing.